Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be comparing a 2022 Lincoln Navigator to a 2022 Cadillac Escalade. Now, this isn't a perfect comparison because the Escalade that I've picked out for this comparison is slightly more expensive than the Navigator, but it's as close as I could possibly manage. Before we get into the comparison, I do want to mention if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, I'm going to include a link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into the comparison. Starting under the hood of the Escalade, we have a naturally aspirated 6.2-liter V8 that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are 420 horsepower and then 460 pound-feet of torque. Fuel economy combined is going to be in the higher teens, and this actually has the same exact fuel economy as the Navigator, which is pretty interesting because the Navigator has a twin-turbo 3.5-liter V6 that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission as well. Power outputs are 450 horsepower and then 510 pound-feet of torque. So even though the Navigator has a smaller engine because it's turbocharged, it has more power and more torque. But like I said, fuel economy is identical between both of them. Now, going over the front end of the Escalade, definitely has that like crazy imposing appearance. The paint color on this particular one, pretty good looking. My favorite combination is like the sport package with the Escalade where you have it finished in white. That looks so cool because it kind of has like that blacked out, like, I don't know, just really cool, aggressive appearance. But this still looks great and is more on the luxury side. Notice the giant Cadillac emblem there in the center. It's just absolutely massive. And then you also notice from an appearance perspective, the Escalade definitely has a boxier appearance with the front end compared to the Navigator here. The Navigator, on the other hand, as you can see here, with the body lines there on the hood and just like the general like shape of the hood is kind of more rounded off with the design. And so even though they both have that large imposing appearance, with the Escalade, again, they're going for that boxy squared off design, whereas with the Navigator here, they're going for that more kind of flowy design basically. But you can see, you know, pretty similar in terms of like the elements on the front end. They both have accent lights and they both have, you know, bright headlights and massive logos and massive grills, and they both have kind of that massive imposing appearance with the front ends of both of them. And then you can see here with the tire and wheel setup with the Escalade, you know, looks great. 22s, if you guys are wondering. It's kind of like standard in this segment with full-size luxury SUVs. They always do 22s because that fills out the wheel wells. And, you know, it kind of, again, has that normal luxury SUV appearance with how the coloration of the wheels and, again, the size of them as well. And then if you guys are wondering, with the Escalade, it's got the Magnaride suspension, and then it also has air suspension as well. And so pretty complex stuff, and what that leads to is, right, you can change the stance and everything, but it also leads to a really smooth ride quality. Now, popping over here to the Navigator, you guys can see the wheel setup and everything, and you can actually get a pretty similar suspension setup on the Navigator. Now, I can tell you, you know, driving them both back to back, which I actually was able to do last year. I was able to drive the Navigator, the Escalade, and the Grand Wagoneer all back to back. I can say that the Navigator and the Escalade actually ride smoother than the new Grand Wagoneer, which is kind of interesting. But the Grand Wagoneer doesn't ride poorly by any means, it's just they're smoother. They're so close. They really are so close in terms of the ride quality. Like, they're both very smooth SUVs. There is a slight difference, but it's close enough that if you buy one or the other, you're not going to feel like you're really missing out from a ride quality perspective. And then popping here to the rear, here's the key fob with the Escalade. That's why I kept this clip in of me doing the remote start from the review, is just so you guys can see what the key fob looks like. Notice that you can open up just the window there in the rear if you want, or you can do the entire hatch also if you want, which is, you know, a nice feature to have. That's also on Tahoe and Yukon as well, which are sibling vehicles with the Escalade. And then you can see here with the plaques there in the back, and it says Escalade on it. And this has the AKG sound system. It's 36 speakers, and it's one of the best sound systems in the automotive industry, period. It's just so solid with the clarity. Notice here with the seats, you can raise and lower them automatically with the third row. Second row, you can just fold down only. So, and you can see it's fast. with the actuation too. Like it pops up, it pops down rather really quick. But you do have to just pick up the headrest yourself still, so that's something that you have to do. But since this is not the extended wheelbase version of the Escalade, the ESV, it's you know, similar in size to like Chevy Tahoe basically, and same thing with the Navigator in this review. That one's not the longer version of the Navigator. I love the cool taillight dance that the Escalade does. That's another cool touch. And then again, just look at the boxy design here, right? And they really emphasize that with the Escalade, is the fact that it's just really like squared off everywhere from a design standpoint. And you can see it's squared off even with the exhaust tip coverings, right? Everything's kind of like harsh lines. And so again, it has that kind of almost like a military appearance to it. And then here's a key fob with the Navigator. So if you're familiar with Ford's, you know, upgraded key fobs, then, well, you'll be used to the key fob there with the Navigator. And you can see, again, still have the little metallic plaques there. Got to have that. And then notice there, the little hanger. And then you got the storage underneath. And I love the coloring of the carpeting. It definitely looks great. And then same thing with the seats. You can raise and lower the third row. And then the second row you can only lower down. So, I mean, if you guys notice, so far equipment-wise, everything is stacking up to be pretty much identical between both of the vehicles. But notice the seat lowers down a lot slower than the Escalade. Second row seat was in the way with this review, so I didn't go down all the way. But yeah, the Escalade seat was just like, wha-bam! This one's like, I'm going to take my time. I guess it's kind of like a luxury car thing, is to make things a little bit slower. But me being an impatient person, I'm like, just go down. Just please. Same thing with rear hatches. I'm like, just go down. You've got the new light bar design here in the back, which looks really cool. It has like a nice animation similar to the Escalade where it like slowly kind of illuminates, and I don't know, I like it. Got the bezel that covers the receiver hitch. Towing capacity with both of them, by the way, and pretty similar, right? They're in this particular segment, all the specs on all the vehicles are so close. It's interesting. Now, pretty interesting with the design here on the Escalade. So you guys can see with the leather trim there at the top, and then notice down below, and you've got like the wood trim in the center. Notice the different colors on it. It's lots of colors happening. And there is a little bit of like denim as well, which is kind of, it's something they've been throwing in luxury vehicles. I thought it's kind of interesting. But here are the seats themselves, really comfortable in terms of just the padding on the seats. And I think they look nice and perforated, which is great. They're soft at the touch. And yeah, I think that Cadillac just did a good job in terms of the seat design for a comfort perspective, which makes sense because this is a luxury vehicle ultimately. And then you guys can kind of see that whole setup. Now, of course, popping here, we have soft close with the doors. That's a cool thing with the Escalade. That's another feature that I just don't care about. I know that like it makes sense if you're going to chauffeur someone around so you don't like slam the door on them because you can just soft close it. But like for me, again, being an impatient person, I'm like, no, I just want to close the door. This one has the screens in the back. So you can see that you can like watch stuff, you can listen to music. It's basic. It's not quite as much as the infotainment system, but it's got quite a few features. Heated seats there for the second row, and then you've got the whole climate zone there for the second row as well. And so, and there's quite a bit happening for you if you're a second row passenger, which is definitely a nice experience. Got the cup holders down below. And then you can see I've got all the charging ports. And I actually got driven around in a loaded up Escalade like this in California for a car event. And it's actually a really nice place to be as a passenger. I can confidently comment on that. Now, just showing you guys headroom and legroom here. Don't mind me talking. I don't even know what I was talking about in that review. I'd have to go watch it back. But you can see you can throw it on the seat with that control. But the point I was trying to make with the third row is that you can fit adults back there very comfortably, which is one of the big factors with this particular segment of SUVs, that you can actually fit adults, and that's why a lot of people will get SUVs like this so they can carry around a bunch of people, and large people at that, right? Now, popping from the Escalade back to the Navigator, you can see here with the door panel, they went for more of a traditional luxury appearance, so they don't have any denim or anything, and the colors are a little bit more, I mean, you've got that cream color, but it's a little bit more again, classic, right? They don't have like they don't have like the gray and the cream and then, the gloss wood trim and everything. They've kind of, like I said, they've gone for more traditional appearance here. And I love the seats in the Navigator. I will say comfort's pretty similar with the seats. The seats in the Escalade might be a little bit more plush, whereas the seats in the Navigator might be a little bit more supportive in terms of the actual feel. Like they're so close though. I hope how there's leather on the grab handle. But the other thing I like to say about the seats in the Navigator is I think they look cooler than the seats in the Escalade, just from a aesthetic perspective. But notice here in the back, we've got heated and cooled seats now in the rear for the Navigator. So that's definitely a big plus, having both of those. And you can see the climate control as well, which is another big positive. And you can see down below that screen, we also have a bunch of like charging ports, and everything's covered in leather here. So again, it has that traditional kind of luxury appearance. What's the Navigator kind of reminds me of is like Mercedes. It's kind of, it gives me a similar feel to it when I'm in the Navigator, because I had that S-Class for a week as a loaner for Mercedes. And so just how they set up the materials and like the finishes they do and everything, similar. It's very similar. And then you can see there with the USB, and notice it's actually hard touch back there, which same thing with the Escalade. It's kind of what they do in this segment, which is interesting to me, that they don't make it all nice throughout, because again, it's ultimately supposed to be a luxury vehicle, but it is what it is. Anyways, here's the front door panel. So you can see again, lots of colors, lots of textures, which makes it so nice to look at. And you can see you've got settings for like the memory seats, you got the window controls, mirror adjustments, normal practical car stuff. The mirrors do power fold in. And then you can see you've got some of the seat controls there on the side, which is kind of interesting. Heated, cooled seats for the front passengers, so even though the second don't get the cooled, front does. And then power running boards, which again, power running boards are kind of standard. Speakers in the headrests, which such a unique appearance. Doesn't make the headrest uncomfortable though, I can say that. I was a little bit worried about that the first time I saw pictures of it. I was like, man, it's going to be uncomfortable. But again, look at the padding on the seats. And you can see this is a press car. You can see how this color is kind of worn over time. Definitely soaks up those stains. But notice trailer brake controls, and then you've got your whole like drive line select section with the air suspension adjustment as well. Pretty cool cabin. Now going over to the Navigator, you can see here with the door panel, and it was raining this day, I remember that. Again, with the padding, again, it has that more traditional look. And notice on how they have all the controls in the door panel in Mercedes fashion. I really think that Lincoln kind of, we can just say copied. They pretty much just copied a lot of stuff from Mercedes. And you're like, you know what? They're making it work, so we'll try it too. Just look at, like, when I press into it. I'm not saying the seats are uncomfortable, but they definitely are a little bit more on the firmer side, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's just going to, some of you might like a little softer seat, and some of you might like a little bit of a firmer seat. Got your pedal adjustment, and then you can see there with the material use on the dash and everything. Steering wheel is power adjustable. Now, again, soft close doors, of course. And boom, full digital dash. So here is the steering wheel in the Escalade. You can see leather all around, including the airbag cover, which is definitely kind of like a luxury car flex. And I think that every luxury car needs to have a leather stitched airbag cover. Even if it's not real leather, it needs to at least look the part. Right, you've got practical controls like volume controls, all that, cruise control. And the cruise control system is great on the Escalade. And if you get like the really high-end packages, they're going to be offering Super Cruise on the Escalade now, which is a really cool self-driving feature similar to a Tesla. This one didn't have it though. And then you can see again with the driveline, it's like, it does have four-wheel auto as well as four-wheel high. No four-wheel low though. I thought that was kind of interesting. Off-road mode, air suspension. And if you want to see an Escalade off-road, just look up Ben Hardy Escalade off-road, because I did take this thing off-road when I had it. Popped a tire, but I took it off-road. You can see the different drive modes there. And notice that, again, it's kind of focused more towards luxury. And then you can see here, they don't even call it off-road ground clearance. They call it, right, increased ground clearance. Normal is what you'd be driving in most of the time. But yeah, air suspension is great with a luxury car like this, right? It makes getting in and out a little bit easier and gives it a nicer ride. I love this side screen on the Escalade. So notice you can change up the heads-up display. I don't know, it's just like a cool thing. It's like your own little screen as the driver where you can go through different things. I did test out the night vision. I'm going to tell you right now, night vision in modern cars just... I've tested it out in other cars like the new Jeep Grand Cherokee L and the Grand Wagoneer and stuff like that. This thing, the augmented reality, is pretty cool. I thought that was cool, but it's like I would probably just going to be looking at the road. And same thing, the night vision is so primitive at this point that, yeah, again, it's just one of those gimmicks. I don't really think, and I think on the Escalade it's like $2,000 or something to add. I wouldn't necessarily say it's worth it. The augmented reality part's cool, but yeah, night vision, not so sure about that. As for the rest of the gauge cluster, the appearance on it, I think it's a good modern looking gauge cluster, and this was kind of like a precursor to what they do with the Tahoe and Yukon. Now the dash on the Escalade gets a lot of crap because it's not fully like covered in leather, right? But I'd have to tell you, I love the look of it. It's so cool looking, even though it's not necessarily the nicest materials. Are you really going to be touching the dash all the time? No, you're going to be looking at it, and it looks nice. Same thing with the infotainment system. Some people commented in the review, I remember, that it kind of looks like it's tacked on. I can see that. It does kind of look like it's plopped onto the dash, and there's the two, like the one screen's in front of the other screen, which is kind of interesting. But, you know, overall, I think they did a good job. And you guys can see the camera views here. One of the best camera systems in the car industry. Got that full 360 view, which is also cool. But yeah, I don't know. When I look at the interior in the Escalade from a dash perspective, I like it. I don't really have anything, you know, too bad to say about it. I think they did a good job with it. And I will say, as for the rest of the infotainment system, it's super easy to use. Response time is fantastic. This is one of the cars where I really enjoyed it, and I can say the Apple CarPlay worked phenomenally. There's a lot of vehicles that when they have wireless Apple CarPlay, it's just is so glitchy and it doesn't work. This car, it works. So this is the one car that I was actually willing to use it. And then you guys can see the ambient lighting here with the different colors. And also, I know I'm talking about the Apple CarPlay for a while. This is also the first Apple CarPlay system, wireless Apple CarPlay system, where my music actually sounded the same as Bluetooth. Most wireless Apple CarPlay systems, the music will like sound way more muted. So that was another big plus. You guys can see that. Only 3 messages. Man, I must have been a loser back then. I'm just kidding. But yeah, you can see it functions fine, which is great. And also, you guys probably noticed with the infotainment system, with the ambient lighting, it's, you know, that's kind of like another luxury car thing to kind of spruce up the interior a little bit. Now, that's on the side of the seat. That's how you basically do a shortcut on the infotainment system. Like, you twist the dial and then it will pull up the massaging seat function. That was another nice thing about the Escalade, driving that around, is just getting massaged. Like, I remember when I took it off-road, it's like I had it massaging me while I was driving it off-road, which was hilarious. It's like, this is so far from like original like you think like original off-roading with Jeeps and stuff, and this, yeah, it's just crazy. Also, Alexa, of course. That's kind of across GM's products. I love how you have physical controls for the climate system. Again, dual zone for the front, and you guys remember the controls for the seats are on the side of the door. So, and then notice you got like lane departure, auto stop start, auto hold, and then you can see the shifter for the 10-speed automatic transmission as well. You know, overall, I think the shifter looks good, and functionality is on is fine. And then you've got analog controls for the infotainment system. So if you don't want to use the touchscreen, you don't have to. That's another cool thing about the Escalade, is that they give you, you know, 2 sets of controls, and then you can see here with the wood trim that covers like storage space, USBs, cup holders. And you notice there's tons of storage space everywhere. Wireless phone charger. Even though you can't really access your phone, it holds it in place, which is very important. This is the coolest part. We have the refrigerator center console, which is, yeah, pretty bougie, but you know, I like it. I like it. And you know, storage space in there is great, but yeah, you can cool it off. If you can use it as like a regular center console, or if you have drinks or something, you want to keep them cooler, then, well, you can use it as a mini refrigerator, and it actually works pretty well. And then again, high gloss with the wood trim. And then you can see tons of different material use. You've got that denim again there on the glove box, which is kind of interesting. We'll see if that trend continues into the future with luxury cars. But I notice you got universal garage door openers. That's for the seats. You've got that for the hatch, and then panoramic sunroof at the top, which you kind of expect in this segment. And then you can see the headliner, premium headliner, which also kind of brings things up with the interior. Definitely looks nice from an aesthetic perspective. And you'll notice speakers everywhere in the car. 36 speakers, got to remember that. And it has the camera mirror, which I'm a huge fan of, because that's a nice bit of safety tech, especially in a big SUV like this. It's a life save. Now you guys can see I kind of clickbaited you a little bit, but here's the deal. There's no difference between a 22 and a 21 Escalade. I've reviewed a 22 Escalade. You guys saw that on the channel, and there's no difference. So I figured I'd use this one because this is more comparable, but you can see $109,000 sticker price on it. And when I say more comparable, this is more comparable to this Navigator than the 22 Escalade that I reviewed, because the 22 Escalade I reviewed was kind of like a base model. Anyways, steering wheel, you can see that whole setup, and then with the wood trim there at the bottom, and then the stitching there in the center. But notice, we don't have a leather-stitched airbag cover here with the Navigator. I think that's something that could be thrown in on other packages. I think the Black Label has a leather-stitched airbag cover, if I remember right. I saw a Black Label at the Chicago Auto Show. But regardless, I think that, yeah, the price point that this is at, it should have it. And you can see the sensors there beeping. That only shows on the camera, it doesn't show in person, believe it or not. And then full digital gauge cluster. This is a little bit more normal compared to the Escalade setup, right? The Escalade has like that weird 2-screen setup, side screen and all that we just saw, whereas this is a little bit more normal, a little bit more familiar. It still looks great. Functionality on it is somewhat similar, right, in terms of like the stuff that you can access. And then look at the different drive modes that you can go through here. So there's a little bit more from a drive mode select perspective with the Navigator compared to the Escalade, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's superior, right? Because it seems like with some car makers, they just have a drive mode for every single condition, and it's like, you've got drive modes you'll never use. My Raptor is a great example. I use normal, Baja, and Sport. I don't use any of the other drive modes. Never have. Never will, probably. Anyways, here's a center infotainment system. So you can see there with the backup camera, trajectory lines, turn steering wheel. From camera system perspective, both very similar. This doesn't have that cool 360 view thing that the Escalade had, where it let you like turn around the SUV and see outside the SUV. You have like a bird's eye view, but a little bit different from a camera perspective. Now, as for the infotainment system, it has that same kind of tablet, appearance. Now, obviously with the Escalade, it's kind of like this flowing line, and it's not rectangular like this, so a little bit different the appearance, but they both look like they're plopped onto the dash, is the point that I'm trying to make. So they're similar from that perspective as well. And this has the new side screen that Lincoln and Ford have in a lot of their models. And I remember when I was trying to demo this for the review, it didn't want to drag over with anything because I kept picking the wrong side pages to drag over. But some of them, if you pick the right page, you can drag them over. And then you can see with the running boards, right? It's cool that you can customize some of those things. So depending on like what you want the car to do when you walk up to it and open it and all that. And then just like the Escalade, it does have massaging seats. That's kind of expected in this segment. If you don't have massaging seats, it's like, what are you doing? Now, in terms of the feeling of the massage, I feel like most massaging seats are the same. The only car that really popped out to me was that S-Class. That one had like crazy intensive massaging seats. Every other car, though, feels pretty much the same. And then again, you guys saw ambient lighting. Camera button, hazard light button. And notice that with the vents, even like the little closing buttons are nice materials. And then we've got a transmission selector that doesn't get in the way, right? With the Escalade, it kind of takes up center console space, whereas this doesn't. But then I notice radio controls and all that technically take up center console space, so it's like 6s, right? And then I do like the fact that the wood trim in this is not high gloss. I'm not a huge fan of high gloss finish with wood trim. And the wood that they're using in the new Navigator, it's hard to tell on camera, but in person, it's beautiful. They did a really good job with changing that up for the refresh. And you can see the drive mode select and all that. And then here's the center console. So, even though it's not a fridge, still practical from a storage space perspective. And then you can see again with the wood trim there at the top. And then I will say this definitely has more of like a luxury vibe to it with the metal and the wood trim and everything. Not having that weird cloth, the denim that the Escalade has, definitely helps out in the Navigator's favor, in my personal opinion. And then regular mirror, don't have a camera mirror. I think Ford needs to add that. They really do, just to kind of catch up with everyone else. But here's a window sticker, and this one is, in fact, a 2022. Because, yes, they did change a lot for the Navigator for 22. So I do need to mention that. But you guys can see this particular one is a 201A for the packaging on it. It's a reserve. But total MSRP $100,000. So yeah, it's like $9,000 less expensive than the Escalade, and let's sum things up with this comparison. So here's the deal. Exterior aesthetics, it's just going to depend on what you want. I think both of them look great. They both look better than the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. I can say that from an exterior aesthetics perspective. But if you want like a boxier look or a rounded off look, right, you just have to decide that for yourself. From an interior perspective with both of the vehicles, the Escalade seems like it's trying to go towards like a more like modern techie looking interior, whereas the Navigator is going towards like a more, like it has tech features. It has a digital gauge cluster. It's got a big infotainment system, but you just notice with like how it doesn't have high gloss wood trim and how it uses just leather, wood, and metal in the interior. So it has that more like old school luxury feel, which I personally like. I lean more towards that than towards what the Escalade has from an interior perspective. I both think they're great looking interiors, but I kind of lean more towards the appearance of a lot of stuff in the Navigator interior, and especially how they have metallic trim over a lot of the switchgear. That definitely just makes it feel a little bit more luxurious. And then from a feature perspective, they're pretty much identical. There's a few features that the Escalade has that the Navigator doesn't, but again, that Escalade's $9,000 more, so definitely take that into account. And then from a driving experience perspective, the Navigator having a twin turbo engine does better at higher elevation, which is where I live, so that's kind of a plus there. And then ride quality, they're both pretty similar. The Navigator does feel quicker from an acceleration perspective. It has more horsepower, more torque, right? So that's kind of going to go there. Fuel economy is pretty much identical between both of the vehicles. Towing capacity, payload, all that stuff is super similar as well. And so again, I think it's just going to come up, or it's going to be determined by the style that you like, Navigator versus Escalade. Again, which style do you like more? And so yeah, that's a tough choice. I will be honest there. This is one of the comparisons that I don't see a clear winner with them. And so I want you guys to let me know which one you'd pick, and that's all.